Rejection. It's one of the hardest pills to swallow, whether it's a breakup, a job, you didn't get a text that never got answered, or someone simply not choosing you. Rejection cuts deep. It shakes your confidence, it makes you question your worth. But here's the truth, rejection isn't the end of your story. It's a test, a moment that asks you, what? Now this is where most people break, but not you. You're not here to beg, to chase, or to prove yourself to people who don't see you. You're here to rise above it, to flip the script, to turn rejection into a catalyst, not a curse. And the way you do that is by mastering one of the most underestimated powers in human behavior, reverse psychology. This isn't about games, this isn't manipulation, this is about control of your energy, your response, and your future. Because when you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically, everything changes. So today, you're going to learn how to take rejection, flip it on its head, and walk away more powerful, more focused, and more magnetic than ever. Let's dive in. Rejection isn't the end, it's a redirect. That simple shift in perspective can change everything. When most people hear no, they interpret it as a final destination, as if the road stops right there. But what if that rejection isn't closing a door to hurt you, but to steer you toward a different path, one that's even more aligned with your growth, your goals, and your self-worth? Most people spend their time banging on closed doors, begging for entry, thinking if they just explain themselves more clearly or show how much they care, the outcome will change. But that's not how the game works. Rejection is feedback. It's not always obvious in the moment, but it's information. It tells you something about the situation, the person, or even about yourself. Sometimes it tells you that you were aiming too low. Sometimes it tells you that you were about to settle. And sometimes life testing your resilience, your sense of identity, and whether you really know who you are without external approval. When you stop seeing rejection as failure and start seeing it as redirection, you take your power back. You begin to trust that every no is leading you to a better yes. You start understanding that the universe or life or whatever you believe in isn't punishing you, it's protecting you, it's pruning the wrong people, the wrong jobs, the wrong opportunities out of your path. So you can step fully into what actually fits, but that only happens when you shift your mindset away from panic and toward purpose. Think back to the last time you were rejected. It might have felt like your whole world collapsed, but now look where you are. You've made it past that. Maybe you're stronger, maybe you're wiser, or maybe you just understand yourself better. That's the hidden gift inside rejection. It stretches you. It forces you to sit with discomfort. And if you choose to evolve, you'll start to see rejection, not as a stop sign, but as a road sign pointing you somewhere different, somewhere better. We've been trained to see acceptance as the goal. Approval is addictive. We chase likes, compliments, recognition, and when we don't get it, it feels like withdrawal. But what if the real win isn't in being chosen, but in choosing yourself? Even when others don't, what if rejection is the moment you finally say, I'm done, depending on someone else to validate who I am? Let's make this real. Say someone rejects you, a friend, walks away, a partner says they're done, a boss passes you up for a promotion. You have two choices. You can spiral into self-doubt, obsess over what went wrong, and try to convince them that you're worth keeping, or you can pause, you can breathe, you can remember that this isn't the end, it's a pivot point. You can ask, what is this trying to teach me? Maybe you weren't showing up as your full self. Maybe you were ignoring your own needs to fit into someone else's world. Maybe that person or opportunity just wasn't ready for what you bring to the table. Either way, this moment is your wake-up call. And the best part, rejection clears space. It takes people, places, and situations off your plate that you may have been forcing. And when things are forced, they never last. Rejection creates room for alignment. It makes space for what's meant to flow into your life without begging or pleading, but only if you allow it to. That doesn't mean rejection won't hurt. Of course it does. You're a human. It's okay to feel it, sit with it, cry about it, be angry, be disappointed, but don't stay stuck there. Don't let a temporary no define your permanent identity. Feel it, then get up, because once the emotion passes, there's something powerful waiting for you on the other side. Clarity, and from clarity comes direction. The most powerful people you've ever admired, the authors, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the leaders, they were all rejected, told no, dismissed, ignored, and you know what they did? They kept going, not because they were superhuman, but because they understood something. Most people never learn rejection is not a personal attack. It's a refinement tool. It's a signal to pivot, not a sentence to quit. So next time you're rejected, don't take it as the end of your story. Take it as a plot twist one that makes your story more powerful, more real, and more worth telling. Because every no you hear today is just redirecting you toward the yes. That's going to change everything tomorrow. It's not the rejection itself that breaks people. It's the meaning they attach to it, that moment when you don't get the job, when someone walks away from you. When a door closes, it doesn't destroy you. What actually crushes people is the voice in their head that immediately starts spinning a story. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. Why did this happen to me? That story becomes more powerful than rejection itself starts controlling how you see yourself. It rewires your self-esteem. Worst of all, it convinces you that someone else's inability to choose you is proof that you weren't worthy in the first place. But what if that story is completely wrong? What if rejection doesn't mean failure? What if it actually means freedom? What if it's the universe or life saying, not here, not now, but there's something better ahead? The most important thing you can do when rejection hits is pause. Just for a moment before you spiral, before you internalize, before you try to fix it. Because in that pause is your power. That's the moment where you decide if this experience is going to define you or refine you. See, most people give their power away in the seconds after rejection. They over-explain, they over-apologize, they overcompensate. Why? Because they think that the rejection was about their worth. But it wasn't. It was about compatibility, timing, perspective, maybe even the insecurities of the other person. But your worth, that doesn't change your potential. Still there, your future on it. The truth is rejection is feedback, and feedback is information. When you learn to detach from the emotion and look at rejection as data, everything shifts. You stop asking what's wrong with me, and you start asking what can I learn from this? That switch right there is the difference between staying stuck and moving forward with purpose. Let's talk about identity. Your identity is shaped by repetition. If you repeatedly respond to rejection by tearing yourself down, your brain wires in the belief that you're less than. But if you train yourself to see rejection as redirection and you respond with strength, clarity, and action, your brain wires in resilience. That resilience becomes your new identity. That's when rejection loses its power over you. Not because it stops happening, but because it stops control. Your reaction to rejection sets the tone for your future. It builds your emotional muscle. And just like going to the gym, every rep makes you stronger every time you get knocked down. And choose not to spiral. You build grit every time you get told no. Choose to keep showing up. You build confidence, not fake confidence based on approval, but real earned confidence based on self-trust. And let's be honest, most of the time rejection isn't even about you. People reject things for 1,000 reasons. Fear, insecurity, timing, mood, past experiences. You don't see that. All you see is the no, but underneath that no is a whole story. You're not aware of when someone walks away from you. It's not always because you're lacking something. It might be because you remind them of something. They're not ready to fail when a company doesn't hire you. It might be because they weren't aligned with your energy or vision. But when you make the rejection personal, you miss the bigger picture. You forget that you bring something valuable to the table, that you have something unique, and that someone else's inability to see it doesn't erase its existence. This is where emotional discipline kicks in when rejection happens. You don't get to choose the pain, but you do get to choose your perspective. Will you let it shut you down, or will you let it sharpen you? Will you prove the rejection right by shrinking, or will you prove it wrong by growing? Imagine this. You get rejected, and instead of reacting emotionally, you lean into growth. You pull back, reflect, and ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What can I improve? Where do I need to evolve? That's not weakness. That's leadership. That's self-mastery. And the more you practice that, the less rejection rattles you. It becomes something you can handle. Something you even expect because you know how to use it. The people who rise in life aren't the ones who never get rejected. They're the ones who don't let rejection write their story. They get back up, they recalibrate, they move. And every time they do, they build unstoppable momentum. So next time rejection shows up, don't panic, don't shrink, don't beg. Take a breath, collect yourself, remember who you are, and respond with intention. Not for the person who rejected you, but for the future that still belongs to you, because your response in that moment is everything. It's your pivot point. And when you get your reaction right, rejection doesn't stop your path. It sharpens your direction. When someone rejects you, it feels like they're saying you're not good enough, that your value didn't make the cut, that something about you just didn't land the way it should have. And the human brain is quick to internalize that. It doesn't ask what's wrong with them. It immediately asks, what's wrong with me? But let's pause right there, because that's where everything starts to go off track. Here's the truth. Most people overlook rejection is rarely a reflection of your true worth. Most of the time, people reject what they don't understand, what feels unfamiliar, or what challenges the way they see themselves. Rejection often says more about their limitations than it does about your capabilities. But if you don't understand this, you'll keep bending, shrinking, and doubting yourself just to avoid another no. You'll make it your job to be more acceptable instead of being more authentic, and that's a trap. The psychology behind rejection is layered. Humans are wired to seek familiarity. We gravitate toward what's predictable, what feels safe, what mirrors our comfort zone. So when someone comes along who challenges that, maybe you're bolder, more confident, more direct, or simply different, it can trigger discomfort, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your energy exposes something they're not ready to face in themselves. Discomfort that's often what gets labeled as not a good fit, too much, not the right time, or whatever soft excuse people wrap their rejection in, but underneath it, they're pulling away from something that doesn't make them feel safe. Not something that lacks value. In fact, sometimes your value is exactly what unsettles them. Your clarity makes them feel confused. Your confidence makes them confront their insecurities. Your presence demands a kind of emotional maturity they haven't developed yet, so instead of leaning in, they reject, and you end up paying the emotional bill for someone else's unreance. This is why rejection isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's a defense mechanism. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's self-sabotage on their part, not a failure on yours. And if you start to see rejection this way, something powerful happens. You stop taking it personally. You stop internalizing every no as a personal attack. You begin to look at rejection with curiosity, not self-blame. You start asking what's really going on here. Instead of spiraling into what's wrong with me, this shift in perspective doesn't just protect your self-worth. It sharpens your instincts. You start to see patterns. You start noticing that the people who reject you often have emotional walls. You are never going to break down, no matter how perfect you try to be. You start realizing that some doors close, not because you're worthy of walking through them, but because there's a better one up ahead. And you were wasting time, knocking on the wrong one. And here's something even deeper. Sometimes rejection is divine timing. It's life removing the wrong options. So you don't settle. It's the universe making room for something more aligned, more honest, more real. But that can only happen if you stop chasing the approval of people who aren't ready for you. If you keep going back trying to repackage yourself to be more likable, more palatable, more acceptable, you're denying your own truth. You're handing over your power in hopes of temporary validation. But when you understand that rejection often stems from fear, unfamiliarity, or their own unresolved issues, you reclaim that power. You see that your role isn't to be everyone's favorite, it's to be true to who you are, and let the right people gravitate to that truth. Not because you convinced them, but because they saw you and said, that's what I've been looking for. So the next time you're rejected, pause, don't spiral, don't start editing yourself. Instead, observe, ask yourself, was I really being rejected, or was I being redirected away from someone who couldn't hold space for the full version of me? Was I too much, or were they too limited to receive what offered? Was this a loss or a hidden win? Rejection stings, but clarity heals. And when you start decoding rejection, not as a statement of worth, but as a reflection of readiness, everything changes. You stop shrinking, you stop chasing, and you start owning your story. That's how you turn rejection. Resilience. That's how you build unshakable confidence, and that's how you walk away, not bitter, not broken, but free. You gain real power the moment you stop chasing and start detaching. That's where reverse psychology begins. Most people think reverse psychology is just saying the opposite of what you want to manipulate someone into giving it to you, but real reverse psychology is much deeper. It's rooted in detachment. It's the mindset of saying, I'm okay either way. And that changes everything. See, when you approach any situation, especially after rejection, with an energy of desperation, people sense it, whether it's a friend who ghosted you, a partner who walked away, or a job interview that didn't go your way. If your response is to beg, over-explain, or keep trying to get back in, all you're doing is confirming that they have the upper hand. You're giving away your power because your energy is communicating neediness, and in human dynamics, neediness repels, confidence attracts. When you practice detachment, it doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you didn't want it to work. It means that you've made peace with the outcome and you're not going to let it dictate your self-worth to question. To reevaluate their decision now. This doesn't just apply to personal relationships. It applies in every space of your life, in business negotiations, friendships, social dynamics. When you show that you're not desperate for validation, you immediately elevate your position. Why? Because people are wired to chase what they can't fully have. We're naturally drawn to what seems secure in itself. So when you're detached, when you're calm, when you're not begging for attention or trying to prove anything, you suddenly become more attractive. People start wondering why you're so unbothered. They become curious, and curiosity is the gateway to re-engagement. Let's break this down in real terms. Someone walks away from you, your instinct is to fix it. You send the text, you ask for clarity, you seek closure. But what if instead you paused, you took a breath, you didn't react immediately? You chose silence over explanation. What if you let your absence speak for you? That's detachment, that's emotional discipline, that's where reverse psychology begins to do its quiet work. When someone expects you to come chasing and you don't, they start questioning their own power. They begin to realize that maybe they don't have the control they thought they did. That shift in energy is powerful because now the tables have turned. You're no longer the one waiting to be chosen. You've reclaimed your power by walking away. Detachment also protects you. It allows you to see situations clearly. When you're emotionally attached, you miss red flags, you compromise your standards, you tolerate behavior shouldn't. But when you're detached, you're able to observe instead of react. You're able to say, is this right for me? Rather than how do I make this work? That shift changes everything. You're no longer trying to fit into someone else's mold. You're standing firm in who you are and letting the right people or opportunities meet you there. Another important truth is this: detachment allows you to focus on yourself instead of wasting energy, obsessing over why they rejected you. You use that energy to level up, improve, you grow, you evolve, you shift your focus inward, and in doing so, you start building something that cannot be ignored. Your confidence, your skill set, your mindset, your life. And the irony is, the more you do that, the more those same people who once dismissed you start to notice, they start to feel the weight of your absence. That's the quiet power of reverse psychology in action. You're not doing it to get them back. You're not playing games. You're just refusing to shrink, refusing to chase, refusing to beg. And that decision, made silently, calmly, without drama, is what separates people who stay stuck from those who rise. You can't force someone to value you, but you can stop devaluing yourself just to stay in their orbit. The most powerful thing you can do after rejection is walk away with grace. Upgrade in silence and let your progress speak so loud they can't ignore it. That's not petty. That's powerful. That's manipulation. That's maturity. Reverse psychology isn't about outsmarting others. It's about mastering yourself. And when you master the art of detachment, you no longer fear rejection. You see it for what it is: a redirection, a signpost, a call to shift your energy inward and rise even higher. You're no longer controlled by what people think of. You're led by what you know about yourself. So the next time you face rejection, try this. Take a step back, breathe, reclaim your energy, remind yourself that you don't need to convince anyone to choose you. You're already chosen by you, and that's where all the power lives. We're wired to chase after what we want. That's human nature. When someone pulls away, we instinctively want to close the gap. We want to explain, convince, clarify, or fix. But here's the irony: that chase kills curiosity. It eliminates tension, and tension is what creates attraction, interest, and power. When you step back instead of leaning in, you don't lose control. You take it back, you stop making the other person feel like the prize, you become the mystery, the question mark, the thing they can't quite figure out, and people are always more interested in what they can't fully understand. Let's break it down. When you're rejected, your first instinct might be to say more, do more, reach out, get closure. But the truth is, the more you insert yourself in someone's space, the less curious they are about you. You've given them everything. There's no mystery left to explore. That's why stepping back is so powerful. It creates space for them to notice, to reflect, to feel your absence, and that space that pours is where curiosity lives. This isn't about playing hard to get, it's about knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify your existence. When someone rejects you, they expect you to collapse. They expect you to chase, to beg, to shrink. But when you step back with quiet confidence, you disrupt the pattern. You do something most people don't, and that disruption sticks in their mind. It makes them think, wait, why aren't they trying to fix this? Did I misjudge them? Did I make a mistake? That inner dialogue is the beginning of a shift. You didn't convince them with words, you influenced them with your absence. Human psychology is funny that way. We don't chase what we already have. We chase what feels just out of reach. We value what values itself. When you take a step back, it shows you have options. It shows you're emotionally independent. And nothing is more magnetic than someone who's whole on their own. Because suddenly the person who rejected you doesn't feel power. They feel pressure. Pressure to rethink. Pressure to reevaluate. Because you're no longer in their orbit, waiting to be seen. You've moved without noise, without drama, and without bitterness. That quiet strength creates tension, and tension pulls people in. Think about it in real life scenarios. A job doesn't call you back. Don't beg for a second chance. Work in silence. Improve, apply elsewhere. Build something better and then let them see it. A person ghosts you, let them no text, no confrontation, no emotional paragraphs. Let the silence speak. Let them wonder why someone they dismissed so easily didn't even flinch that moment when they expect a reaction. And get nothing, that's when they start watching you. That's when they start getting curious. Stepping back is not weakness. It's strategy. It takes strength to stay still when every emotion in your body is screaming to act. But every time you resist the urge to explain or defend yourself, you get stronger. You shift from emotional to intentional. You stop operating out of fear of losing someone and start moving from a place of personal power. That shift changes everything, because now you're no longer trying to prove anything. You're allowing people to prove themselves to you. There's something captivating about people who don't over-explain. They leave you wondering. They leave room for imagination. That's what stepping back does. It invites the other person to fill in the blanks, to project, ask questions. And questions create connection, not answers. When someone has all the answers, the brain relaxes, it moves on. But when something feels unresolved, like your calm detachment after rejection, it lingers. It loops in the mind. They think about it. When they're alone, they bring it up to friends. Stalk your profile. They pay attention in ways they never did. When you were right, they're asking to be seen. You don't have to manipulate anyone. You just have to value yourself enough to stop pushing where you're not appreciated. You're not disappearing to hurt them. You're detaching to protect your peace. That kind of detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful. Because the people who matter will feel your absence. They'll realize the silence is louder than any words you could have said, and the people who don't notice, they were never meant to go where you're headed anyway. So the next time rejection shows up at your door, don't slam it shut, but don't beg to be let back in. Either walk away. Quietly, powerfully let your absence do what your presence couldn't. Let curiosity work in your favor. Because curiosity isn't just emotional, it's magnetic. And when you step back with intention, you create the kind of tension that brings the right people and the right opportunities straight to you, because you chase them, but because you had courage to walk away first. Most people operate in a cycle of over-explaining, over-chasing, and over-compensating when they feel unwanted or rejected. It's human nature. We want to be accepted, validated, and chosen. But what if I told you that the most powerful move you can make after rejection is not to do more, but to do less? That's where the push-pull dynamic changes everything. It's not just a psychological trick. It's rooted in how humans are wired to respond to challenge and distance. The moment you stop trying to convince someone of your worth and instead start withdrawing your energy, you create a vacuum, an emotional pull they didn't expect. We all crave what we can't fully grasp. It's in our biology. When something feels too available, too eager, too accessible, it loses its allure. Think about it. When someone is always chasing after you, texting constantly, making it clear they need you to feel okay, you don't feel drawn to them. You feel smothered. But when someone pulls back, focuses on themselves, removes their emotional dependency on you, a strange thing happens. You begin to wonder, where you become curious. You start paying attention in a new way. That's the push-pull dynamic. And when used with confidence and emotional control, it creates space for the other person to reevaluate. Suddenly, you're not the person they rejected. You're the person they're starting to reconsider. You're not reacting emotionally. You're responding with strength. That strength looks like silence. It looks like a quiet focus on your own life. It looks like removing your energy from the situation and directing it inward, to growth, to purpose, to self-respect. When you pull back, you're not being passive. You're being powerful. You're signaling that you won't beg for attention. You're not auditioning for someone's approval. You're not chasing love, acceptance, or recognition. You've realized that your value doesn't shrink just because someone failed to see it. You've realized that attention earned through desperation is never real respect. It's pity. And you don't want pity. You want truth. You want alignment. You want mutual energy, not one-sided effort. This approach works because it honors your dignity. Push-pull dynamic isn't about being cold or manipulative. It's about restoring balance. When someone pushes you away, instead of clinging tighter, you lean back. You don't escalate. You don't argue. You allow the silence to do what your words cannot. And in that silence, people often begin to feel the weight of your absence. Not because you're playing games, but because for the first time you've shown them how strong you are without them. This strength creates contrast. Before, they saw you as emotionally invested, maybe even too available. Now they see distance, maturity, and restraint. That contrast makes them question it. It makes them reflect. And while they're doing that, you're not waiting. You're not using the push-pull as a tactic to win them back. You're using it to win yourself back. You're growing, evolving, healing. And in that process, something shifts inside you. You stop needing their return. You stop needing the apology, the closure, the second chance, because the growth you gain from that space becomes more valuable than their attention ever was. This dynamic also teaches you something deeper: how to regulate your emotions without external validation. It teaches you how to stay grounded in rejection, how to stay silent when silence serves you more than words, and how to trust that what pulls away from you was never meant to be forced, and that trust turns into peace. You don't chase anymore, you don't panic, you observe, you learn, and you let people show you through their actions whether they deserve access to your energy again. Sometimes they do come back, often confused, curious, or regretful, and by then you've changed. You're not bitter, you're just wiser. You understand that the push-pull wasn't about manipulation, it was about revealing the truth of who really wants to be in your life, and who only wanted control, the truth of your own strength. The truth that rejection isn't a reason to collapse, it's an opportunity to rise in silence and come back stronger. And even if they don't come back, it doesn't matter, because you did. You came back to yourself, you reclaimed your power, your boundaries, your sense of worth. You didn't shrink in the face of rejection. You expanded, you didn't beg to be chosen. You chose yourself. That's the real magic of the push-pull dynamic. It doesn't just change how others see you, it transforms how you see yourself. And once you see yourself as enough, as worthy, as whole, you don't chase anyone, you attract everything meant for you. Most people don't realize it, but the story they tell themselves after rejection is far more damaging than the rejection itself. You get turned down and suddenly your mind goes on a spiral. Maybe it wasn't good enough. Maybe I need to prove my worth. Maybe if I just try harder, they'll finally see me. That's the story most people live in. But here's what separates confident, magnetic people from the rest. They flip that narrative completely. They don't shrink after rejection. They rise. They don't beg to be seen. They walk like they already are, because deep down they know the truth. They are the prize you want to know how to truly use reverse psychology in the face of rejection. Start by shifting the way you see yourself. Instead of thinking, how can I convince them to want me? Start thinking, do they even deserve access to me? That simple mindset shift changes your energy entirely. It's no longer about proving, it's about deciding. It's no longer about chasing. It's about filtering, and that's where your power is. When you carry yourself like the prize, everything changes: your tone, your posture, your responses. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop pleading for understanding. You stop giving second chances to people who had no respect for your first rejection. Becomes less of a bruise to your ego and more of a checkpoint, a moment where you ask yourself, does this align with who I'm becoming? And if the answer is no, you don't just move on, you level up, you become magnetic. Moment you stop trying to be chosen. Think about that. Most people are so busy trying to be picked, approved, validated, or accepted that they forget they have the power to choose too. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need every opportunity to say yes. You just need to show up as someone who knows their worth, whether they're clapped for or criticized. That's the difference, and here's where reverse psychology kicks in. When you no longer crave validation from the person who rejected you, when you're detached, centered, and focused on your own growth, you actually become more desirable, because you're trying to play a game, but because people naturally chase what they can't easily access. It's human nature. The moment you stop reacting emotionally and start acting intentionally, people feel it. They start wondering why you're unbothered, why you didn't break, why you didn't come running. That silence, that self-respect, it speaks louder than anything you could ever say. You want to make someone reject time. You don't do it with words. Don't do it with desperate attempts to prove them wrong. Do it with results, with peace, with progress. Show up in the world so confident, so clear, so unshakable that the same people who dismissed you are now asking themselves, did I make a mistake? But by then it won't even matter, because you'll be too far ahead to look back. Let go of the version of you that needed to be picked to feel powerful. Let go of the version that thought rejection meant something was wrong with you. It didn't. Rejection simply meant that something or someone didn't match your path. And that's not a loss. It's protection. It's redirection. You are not here to convince people to see your value. You're here to embody it so fully that only those with clarity, respect, and integrity even qualify to be in your space. When you understand that rejection stops feeling like rejection, it starts feeling like information, feedback, data. If someone doesn't choose you, good, that's one less person to waste your time on. That's one more opportunity to refine your focus, to raise your standards, to align deeper with your goals. Rejection becomes fuel, motivation, clarity. This is your moment to flip the narrative. You're not broken, you're not unworthy, you're not too much or not enough. You are the prize, and when you believe that deeply, unapologetically, and consistently, you stop trying to fit into places that never deserved you. In the first place, you stop watering yourself down to be accepted. You stop chasing people who don't have the capacity to value you, because here's the secret: the more you own your worth, the less you tolerate anything that doesn't match it. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect, that's emotional intelligence. That's maturity. You don't need to fight to be seen when you already know who you are. So the next time you face rejection, remember this: it's not a loss. It's a test to see if you'll fold or if you'll rise, a test to see if you'll beg or build, a test to see if you'll chase them or choose yourself. And when you choose yourself, every single time, you don't just survive rejection, you turn it into a magnet for better opportunities, better people, and a better life. You are the prize, and once you start living like it, the world will either rise to meet you or remove itself. Either way, you win. When someone rejects you, the instinctive reaction is to prove them wrong, by trying harder to win them back, to show them they made a mistake. But the most powerful move you can make is the exact opposite. Don't prove anything to them, prove everything to yourself. Use that rejection as a challenge to become someone so strong, so undeniable, so fulfilled, that the very people who turned their backs on you can't help but look back and wonder, what was I thinking? That's how you turn the tables. That's how you make rejection regret. It starts with understanding your value isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. People don't reject you because you lack worth. Often they reject you because they can't handle your potential, your honesty, your intensity, or your truth. And instead of trying to dilute yourself to be more digestible to others, you need to double down on who you are. That means pouring all the energy you wanted to give them into yourself, into your growth, your vision, your peace. When you stop looking outward for answers and start building inward, something changes. You become a force, not just someone who's healing, but someone who's evolving so powerfully that rejection becomes fuel. Reverse psychology works when you no longer seek approval from the source of the rejection. Don't chase you, don't explain you, don't perform, you simply level up. You become so focused on becoming the best version of yourself that people start to notice that person who once thought they had the upper hand suddenly feels the loss, not because you tried to make them feel it, but because you showed them what it looks like to rise without them. When you step away from someone who rejected you, you give them the space to feel your absence. Most people crowd rejection with apologies, explanations, or emotional pleas. But when you pull back completely, it does something powerful. It puts you in control. You're no longer reacting to the rejection. You're creating space where curiosity can grow. People begin to why you're not chasing, why you're not hurting, why you're not trying to fix it. And in that silence, they hear your strength. They feel your detachment. They realize that they didn't just reject you. They let go of something rare. And that's when regret starts to whisper in their ears. But here's the thing: you don't wait around for that regret. You don't pause your life hoping they'll come back. You use that rejection as a mirror. You ask yourself, what do I need to heal? What did I tolerate that I shouldn't have? Where can I grow so that next time I'm not even tempted to shrink for someone else's comfort? That's where transformation begins. And once you start focusing on your healing, your goals, your purpose, you become more attractive, not just physically, but energetically. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. You walk into rooms with presence. You pursue your goals without needing validation. You stop chasing attention and start commanding it. That's the kind of growth that makes people look twice. And the beauty is you're not doing it for them. You're doing it because of them, because they rejected you. You found a deeper version of yourself because they said no. You discovered your own yes. And that's the irony when you stop seeking closure and start creating clarity with yourself. You outgrow the people who couldn't see your worth. You become someone who no longer fits in the same spaces you once begged to be included in. That's the win. That's the reversal. That's how rejection starts to feel like a gift. It pushed you back so you can launch forward. Eventually, same people who walked away will start watching. They may not say it out loud, but they'll see the difference. They'll see the strength. They'll see the life you built without them. And while they reflect on what they lost, you'll be too busy building, living, and thriving to notice. That's not revenge, that's evolution. That's what happens when you take your power back. So the next time you get rejected, don't internalize it, don't shrink, don't chase, flip the script, rise up, heal, grow, evolve, and let your transformation be so loud that their silence speaks volumes. You don't need them to regret it. But when they do, let it be, because you became someone they no longer have access to. That's how you make rejection wish it never happened, not with bitterness, but with brilliance.